All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations that are based off of the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I am currently in the JavaScript section, and we're talking about client-side web APIs and fetching data from the server. What we're going to get into here is the whole concept of AJAX, which stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Now that's what it stands for, but XML is not used that often anymore. More often than not, what's used instead of XML is JSON. So I quickly brought up here a couple things. This is the definition of AJAX programming that's out on Wikipedia. All right, as it says, it's a set of web development technologies on the client side to create asynchronous web applications. Well, we've been talking about asynchronous and what it all means. But it says here, with AJAX, web applications can send and retrieve data from a server asynchronously. In other words, without having to stop what's going on and interfering with the behavior of the existing page. All right. It says it allows web pages to change content dynamically without having to reload the entire page. It's not a single technology, but it's a group of technologies. HTML and CSS can be used in combination to mark up and style information from a page. The built-in XHR object, or since 2017, the new fetch function, is commonly used to execute AJAX on web pages, allowing sites to load content onto the screen without a page refresh. That's the key point here, the key takeaway. Now, I went over to the W3 schools, and they've, of course, because they've got a tutorial on everything, here's their AJAX introduction. AJAX is a developer's dream because you can, here's the key thing, update a web page without having to reload the page. All right? Request data from a server after the page has been loaded. Receive data from the server after the page has been loaded. Send data to a server in the background. So if we look right here, here's an example. So let's look. All right. So what are we doing right here? Well, what we're saying is we've got a button. When we click the button, call load doc to change the content. What's that going to do? Well, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to create a new XML HTTP request. All right. Then it's going to say, okay, if you're ready, if the ready state is 4, meaning that it's basically been done, and the status is 200, meaning it was successful. See what we've done? We went through there and we changed the information that was there. So one more time, when we click change content, the system went out and it found the file that was called ajaxinfo.txt and it reloaded it into this area. Well, where's that file? We don't see it on here, but when we run it and we click change content, that's the file. So it changed the title and it added that content. As it says here, this might seem like a small detail, but the ability to go in and just update part of a site is big. All right. And you see it all the time. You even see it in things like Google Request, where if I come in here and I want a book on JavaScript and I type in J, well, notice I've got a bunch of J stuff here now. And as soon as I type in an A, how it changes, and another V and an A, now it's got JavaScript and it's got Java. And as soon as I put an S in there, and let's say a C, now everything that's in here is JavaScript. This has been updating on the fly, and it makes it much easier for me and a much more pleasant experience as I'm working my way through Google Suggest right here. Originally, as it says here, page loading on the web was simple. You sent a request for a website to the server, and as long as nothing went wrong, basically you got it back. The trouble with this is if you wanted to update part of the page, all right, for example, as it says there, to display a new set of products or load a new page, you had to load it all over again, which wasted a lot of time. Now, I used to be able to show a really neat example of this, and I would go out to something like familyvideo.video.com. They've changed this over the years, but I could come out here and, I mean, even this, you can see what's changing when I highlight it. See that? But what used to happen on here is I could go and, come in and let's see, new releases. Okay? All right. They've changed this over time, and you can see the little effect when you hover over this. But it used to be what you could do is if I would come and highlight this, basically the stuff that you see down here, that would actually show in here in a little bubble. Now, this may not seem like a big thing, but take a look right now when I click Read More. All right? And it's not really showing me a whole heck of a lot. But let's see. How about this one if I click Read More here? All right, see that? I don't have to reload the entire page. It's just going to go and move this stuff all down, and it's a very much a nicer experience for me to be able to go in and out and take a look at what's in there, again, without having to do a full page reload. Now, it says in the past this was achieved by using APIs like XML HTTP request, also known as XHR. More recently, the Fetch API is used. Now, even though this whole thing in here is going to talk about AJAX, which is an acronym that stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. XML is not used that often anymore. More often than not, it's used. What's used is JSON, JavaScript object notation, and JSON is typically used because it provides a more JavaScript-like syntax than does XML. All right. As mentioned here, the AJAX model involves using a web API as a proxy to more intelligently request data rather than just having the browser reload the entire page. And this is what I tried showing you in here with Google Suggest. It says this is a really good thing. Why? Two main reasons. Number one, page updates are a lot quicker. You don't have to wait for the page to refresh. Number two, less data is downloaded, which means less bandwidth is used. All right? And that's especially important when you're working with mobile devices. To speed things up even further, what may end up happening is when you download data onto your computer, it may go and take a website or something that it feels that it might need or need again and put it into a special part of computer memory that's known as caching. All right? And then if it has to reload it, it looks and it says, oh, this hasn't changed since the last time I copied it. So it copies it from cache. Now, if it has changed, of course, you'd have to go back in and reload it. So what's a basic AJAX request? As it says here, let's look at how such a request is handled. And they're going to show it both ways. First, using the XHR object, and then using fetch. For these examples, it says, we'll request data out of a few different text files and use them to populate a content area. Again, that's very simple, or similar rather, to this example right here that I'd shown earlier. Close a few of these. All right. This series of files are going to simulate a fake database. In a real application, we'd be more likely to use a server-side language like PHP or probably even Node.js to request data from our database. These are the things that we go into in the AWD 1111 class. All right. So this XHR or XML HTTP request, as it says, it's now a fairly old technology. It was developed by Microsoft in the late 1990. So again, we're talking about something that's 20 some years old. It says to begin this example, let's make a local copy of Ajax start.xm.html. Let's do that. So this will be Ajax start.html. Okay, I don't think it's going to do very much right now, but let's take a quick look. There it is. Okay, there's our starting point. And you'll notice it's not giving us anything in here. Okay. And we want to add 4 text files. Well, that's going to be the stuff for verses 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's grab this. Let's see, can I do it doesn't like that, especially. I think, yeah, it did not copy it. All right, so there's verse 1. Here is verse 2. Here is verse 3. And finally, finally here is verse 4. So let's save those. And let's make sure that's out of there. We don't want that. All right. All right. So we've got the file in there and the 4 verses in there as well. Just inside of the script element, add the following code. The first thing this is going to do is store a reference to the select elements and the pre-elements. Okay, so we'll take a look at those in just a minute. It's also going to define an onChange handler so that when the select value is changed, it's going to be invoke the update display as a parameter. In English, what this is saying is when we go to that drop-down list and we switch from verse 1 to verse 2 or verse 2 to verse 3, etc., it's going to be calling update display to hopefully do that update. So let's bring this in. And in our script tag, bring in this. All right. And so this is going to be a query selector on select. So it's going to find the select, which is here. All right. So it's the drop down, and the pre, which is here. So I think it's going to fill it up right there. That's just an empty, the equivalent of an empty div. So let's define our update display function. Okay. We'll start our function by constructing a relative URL pointing to the text file we want to load, as we'll need it later. The value of the select item at any time is the same as the text inside of the selected option. For example, verse 1, whatever. However, web servers tend to be case sensitive and the file name doesn't have a space in it. To convert verse 1 to verse1.txt, we need to convert the V from an uppercase to a lowercase, remove the space, and add the .txt on the end. And they're showing you how this can be done. To begin creating an XHR request, you'll need to create a new request object using the constructor. That's what's right here. You can call this object anything you like, but we'll call it request to keep things simple. Add the following below your previous lines. And I'm bumping right up on my time here, so I'm going to stop in just a moment. Yeah, because there's several steps in here. All right, let's just stop right here and we'll pick it up in the next lecture.